What's going on, guys? So today we're going to actually be brewing something else today. Now, if you have any interest in health, we're going to be making our own probiotics today. Now, keep in mind this is not medical advice. This is not intended to treat anything. This is just, some interesting stuff I really enjoy making, and I've done this for a few years now. So, this is something I have more experience brewing, and I'm just going to put it in the biohacking playlist. This is not going to change the direction of this channel. It's just some additional content to play with the algorithm and see how it goes. Because obviously, the idea, when you put thousands and thousands of hours into over 300 videos, is to get people to see them. So I'm just going to continue making interesting content, things I think you'll like. So what this is right here, you probably heard of kombucha. Now, this is actually an even more potent probiotic. It's called Kefir. Now, it goes back a long period of time, and in fact, they used to actually fill animal organs, and they found they were able to grow these grains, and that's where at least the story comes from. In Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, Russia. So it is actually an excellent probiotic, and you can actually tell it's working. If you have any digestive issues, this is what I find to be the best solution for anything like that. Now, I have, my family has I come from a family where a lot of members have health issues, so, health is something that's very personal to me. So I thought I'd share this with you guys and show you guys how to make it. So all you got to do is buy Kefir grains. Now, there's two different types generally. There's the milk Kefir, and then there is water Kefir. It's going to be easier for you to work on the water Kefir, but if you have access to things like raw milk, you could work on that milk Kefir as well. But today we're just going to be showing you how to make the basic Kefir water, and it's really easy to do. To start out, you're going to want, and this is really a magic ingredient, which is molasses. In all of my experience doing this, molasses has been the key to a really, really healthy kefir. And these grains can reproduce. So you may buy this many grains. I ended up originally buying something like this, and I had like an entire gallon full of kefir grains at some point less than a year later. It all depends how you feed them, and I'll be covering some more of that. So the channel's not changing, but this is just something I thought could be fun to add in since I was doing it anyway. And I'm also going to share my recipe for a really good soda. So you may be used to drinking Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever it is, or grape soda. I'm going to be showing how to make something that really, in my opinion, rivals most grape sodas that you'll find out there, with the carbonation, with the flavor, and it's much better for you. So let's get started. Let's get going with this, and I'm going to first lay out what you need to get started. First off, of course, you need kefir grains. Now, you want to also keep everything as sanitary as possible. So as you can get a look inside there, that's what the grains look like. They almost look like crystals, but they're wet, and healthy grains are not going to be mushy, or at least, of course, they can be squished, but I guess you could say it's like a harder version of Jello. That kind of consistency will be healthy kefir grains. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw them in some plain spring water. So right here what we have is pure spring water, and that's really the safest way to do this. Get pure spring water if you can. Otherwise, you could use distilled or something like that, but you want to avoid any additives as much as possible, because you could absolutely kill the grains, and at that point it'll turn into something like a slime. So you don't want that. But you'll be able to easily tell if it's healthy, and I'll show you how to tell that. So you really want the grains to stay this consistency. And what I'm going to do now, I have plain spring water in here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dump those in. And just entering the spring water alone here. All right, that's good enough. So now they're in the plain spring water. Now what I have here is some really piping hot spring water. Now what I'm going to do is add now. So you get yourself a cup of these grains. It's like a quarter cup. Then take whatever sugar you like. I'm using brown sugar here. Heat up some water separately. You don't want to heat the grains up or you could kill them. So you don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do now is add all that brown sugar which was a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, into the glass, and it is dissolving now. And next what I need to do is I'm going to add a spoonful or two of this Grandma's brand molasses. Now this video, it's going to really, show you something I think is very neat. So I'm going to add 2 spoonfuls of that, 2 light spoonfuls. It all depends how big the spoon you have is. And the key is to use hot water to dissolve it. And you're going to keep the grains separate from that hot water because you want to protect the grains from any heat. But ideally you'll have your temperature somewhere around 74 degrees. Of course, it can handle any slight difference and variation there, but the thing about it is the lower the temperature, the slower it's going to be. So if you have to leave town for a few days, you can stick your jar in the refrigerator and it'll really slow it down. So that's another tip I have for you. And I've actually had these grains in the fridge for about a week, and I need to really use them because they won't stay good without food for very long. So what I need to do now is simply dump this dissolved, basically some sugar water, some molasses and sugar water. And since I've added that spring water, it's cold spring water, the grains are at the bottom, so they're protected from the heat of this hot dissolved sugar. Now it's really easy. Today we're just going to be mixing this together, and you can use any mason jar for this. Okay, there we go. Now I may have used a little bit too much liquid here, so I may hold off. I have overdone the sugar slightly anyway, so it's going to be okay in my case. Now, once you have put that together, you can take your lid and then you can close it up. Now, ideally, I do want to give you this heads up. This is really going to bubble and come alive. This is going to go crazy with bubbles, and some of that could raise the level of the liquid you have in here. So what you want to really do is ideally measure out your liquids. I didn't do that this time. I was just in a rush to get this video done because I need to use the grains. So really, you want it to be finished off maybe about here, filled up. And then you'll put your lid on the jar. And it doesn't take them long to get started, so within the next 24 hours I'll definitely be seeing a ton of bubbles and stuff. And from there we can go ahead and turn this into a grape soda. And it's going to be an excellent grape soda. It's one of my favorite things to drink, and it really is excellent for your digestive system. It's unlike anything you can get all over the counter, and probably better than anything you can get on the other side of the counter as well. It's just a superior, because it is, your gut is so important to your overall health. When you realize that, so many neurotransmitters are actually in your gut and not in your head. So they call it the second brain for a reason, and your gut health is really a picture of your overall health. So as Hippocrates, the father of what is known as modern medicine, had said, all health begins and ends in the gut. And I believe that. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to put a lid on this. We already see some bubbles. It may just be the mixture of everything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this lid on just a little loose. And the reason for that is because it's going to create gases that need to escape, much like brewing beer or cider. But you really don't want to fill it as high as I did. I'm just going to keep a close eye over the next 24 hours. And then I may pour a little off the top, because the grains are mostly down here, but they will be floating around as bubbles enter them, and they'll actually look like they're swimming around. So I'll share some of that as well. But the key point is you want to use any sugar you want, and take a large mason jar like this, put 1 1/4 cup or more of the grains into 1 mason jar. You don't want to overdo the sugar, but you also don't want to underdo it. You don't want it too diluted. Obviously, the more sugar you have, the faster it'll brew, but also you don't want it to overflow, which is very possible. And once I, get it to start moving, I'm gonna take some of that out, but I want to give it all the sugar that it can get until then. So that's what I have to share with you guys today. We're going to actually go to the next step after this, and once this is ready, it'll only take maybe 3 days you can drink it right away, or you can continue it. You can actually add things like raisins. You can add things into a brew bag like this. So what this does is it allows you to filter out things. So you want to put fruit in it and make it a fruit flavor. You can stick different fruits in here, and I do that a lot of times. And then you just sit it in for a second fermentation, and you'll add a little more sugar to handle that. And it will extract the flavor from the fruits or raisins, whatever it is that you may use. In my case, I'm going to be doing a second fermentation with grape juice. And I do a lot of this to taste, so I don't always measure, but just be cautious. Don't overdo the sugar. Try and go about a quarter cup of sugar to a quarter cup of grains, and then add a nice spoonful at least of molasses, no more than 2 spoonfuls. Put it all together, let it sit, and check it in another 2 days. And I'll share the next part with you soon. See you guys in the next video.